Welcome to this week's episode of the Retirement Compass, the show that helps you successfully navigate to and through retirement, brought to you by the team of Stonebridge Wealth Management right here in Nebraska. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and I'm joined in the studio today by Tim Kulhanek. He is founding partner and financial advisor, and Jeremy Gove, who is senior financial advisor. Gentlemen, it's great to be back with you. How are you this week?
Doing great, thank you.
Yes. Are you sleeping any better?
Well, it's kind of a recurring type of theme with that, but I'm still having a lot of fun watching little girls grow and riding balance bikes and getting ready for different activities. So we're having a good time.
That's awesome. Never a dull moment, for sure.
Okay.
Well, I am thrilled to have this opportunity to be back in the studio with you today. I know you've prepared another great show for our viewers at home. We're going to be talking today about the retirement dilemma. What do we mean by this? Well, the reality is that today's modern retiree faces way more challenges than previous generations did. This is not our parents' or our grandparents' retirement any longer, and we need to be prepared for that. So that's what we're going to dive into today. Yeah. And I wanted to start with this note that I have here. This is according to research by Willis Towers Watson. Only 14% of Fortune 500 companies offer pension plans to new hires. This is down from 59% back in 1998. So we've seen a lot of changes even in just the last, 30 plus years here. So how has this changing retirement landscape really impacted the baby boomer generation? Let's start with that.
Yeah, monumentally. And so I think first we got to do a little bit of history and understand how we got here. So it really started, Kristen, back in 1974, and that was the passage of what was called the ERISA Act. That's E-R-I-S-A. Stands for the Employee Retirement Income Security Act. And that was the birthplace of the what we now call an IRA. In this industry, there's so much jargon and lingo, acronyms. Right? So IRA, individual retirement account. So it's a pre-tax retirement account. We call it a defined contribution type of plan that folks are able to put money into and get a tax deduction, and it grows tax deferred. We'll talk more about those in future episodes. But what happened a few years later, 4 years later in 1978, during the passage of the Revenue Act, Section 401, paragraph K was added to the Internal Revenue Code. Now that is a very important date and event because that was the birthplace of the 401k, 403b, depending on what industry you're in.
The
it could
workplace retirement plans, TSPs,
exactly.
Right?
You bet, you bet. And so we saw a sea change. At the time, it was sold to employers and employees as this is a supplemental plan. This is going to help you along with your defined benefit or your pension plan. And some early adopters were really big companies. Think of Honeywell and Johnson & Johnson and PepsiCo and Boeing. And they started to adopt these plans with the idea sold to the employees that, hey, you know what? You're going to have this liquid money in addition to the pension or defined benefit we'll provide you with. But as you just laid out with the statistics, that's not what happened.
Yeah, and so literally the way I like to think of it is, unfortunately, the burden of preparing for your retirement was now placed on our shoulders, but we weren't given instruction manuals or how-tos how to do this, right? So what's been the result of that over the years now?
Yeah, I mean, what we've seen is with this change, folks have really almost become lost at sea, if we stick with kind of the nautical terms, because they don't have a plan in place on how do I take this nest egg that I've worked 30, 40 years to amass and turn it into an income that I can't outlive. The great thing about a pension is, as long as your company is staying in business and there's some insurance to back this up, you're guaranteed an income for the rest of your life. So think about your grandparents' retirement or your parents' retirement, some of our viewers. They retired, they had Social Security, they had their pension, and anything else was just kind of icing on the cake, and they could live very comfortably typically on that. Today, that's not the case. Social Security was never meant to be the retirement plan. It was only for the average worker supposed to replace maybe 60% of their pre-retirement income. And now so many people, their budgets are being stretched from all the different challenges we're having in this changing landscape, from rising interest rates and volatility in markets and inflation, that they're really having a tough time figure out, how do I pull this all together and replace my income so I can live the lifestyle I want to live in retirement?
Absolutely. Well, and to your point about Social Security, it was never meant to be anyone's sole source of retirement income, but the stats show that over 40% of Americans are currently getting over half of their retirement income from Social Security. But if you look at the maximum amount you can get, it's not a lot. I mean, comparatively, right? So let's break this down now for our viewers specific in Nebraska. How do you see these changes in this landscape specifically impacting those that you serve in this great state?
Yeah, so Kristen, it really starts with having a plan. I mean, anytime that you're going to do something of significance, you usually want to have a plan, right? And so if you think about building a house, you don't start by calling the lumber company and saying, hey, I need a bunch of wood delivered and I need some shingles and I need some stuff. That's not how you start. You start with an architect who draws out the plan, who lays out what is this plan going to look like, how many rooms do you want, how many closets, how many bathrooms, all that stuff. That's all put into the plan. And then from that blueprint, then you decide how much lumber you need. And that's really what we do for our clients at Stonebridge. We put together a plan that includes income, investments, healthcare, taxes, and legacy planning. And so when you put all of those things together, we lay out the blueprint. Here's what we need. Here's how much income we need in our retirement years. This is what our budget says we need. And then we figure out how to get that in the most tax efficient manner. And that's really what we're doing. And the benefit to our clients is, again, you have this plan laid out, you're able to walk through it, you're not stuck. How many 2x4s do I need, or how many mutual funds do I need, how much of this or that? It's all laid out. And when do I draw Social Security? It's laid out in the plan. Okay, I need to draw Social Security at 67. I'm going to draw income from these other investments until then, and so on and so forth.
When I know we're really focusing on income, that is one of the top pillars of the 5-point proprietary process that you do for your clients. You work people through the Retirement Compass financial planning process. And with income, it's so interesting. It's a lot less with how much you have saved up, although that does play obviously an important factor, but it's your ability to take that amount and then convert it into a sustainable income. That's the key. That's what you're helping folks actually do.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, what we typically find is when folks come in, and we have a radio show, a lot of folks call in from the radio show on the weekends, our television program, the workshops we do. But what we find is oftentimes people have tools, so to speak, financial tools, and it kind of reminds me of the kitchen junk drawer. You guys, I assume, have a junk drawer, right?
Oh, we all have one. I can tell you exactly where mine is, too.
Yes, right. So, if you look at mine, I can picture it right now. There's paper clips, there's napkins, there's toothpicks, there's keys that I don't know what they go to, but they're in there. And I don't want to throw them away because they're keys, and the keys seem to be important.
We have the same thing.
We have the same thing, right? So, but what I find is that's a lot of people's financial life, is they have a financial junk drawer. They've got mutual funds, 401ks, IRAs, but they don't have a plan to tie it all together and turn it into an income stream that allows them to do the things they want to do in retirement. And that truly is what the Retirement Compass process is designed to do. Look at your income, and we'll get to the other pieces, the investment, taxes, healthcare, and legacy, but we want to put together a written income plan, okay, that tells you what's going to happen, what account to draw from, and when, all of the different aspects, the ingredients to a good plan. We can write that out for you, complimentary, no cost, no obligation, but it does start with a phone call to our office today. Give us a call, number below the screen, or scan the QR code, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon.
Wonderful. Tim, Jeremy, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, we are going to take a quick commercial break, but stay with us. We have so much more to cover as it relates to you being able to generate income for yourself in retirement. But we encourage you, we are inviting you to call that number to get your own complimentary retirement readiness review. And as Tim just mentioned, as part of that process, you're going to be able to get that written income plan as well. That number to call is on the bottom of your screen, 866-256-7778, or you can take out your smartphone. If you scan that QR code, that's going to take you over to a landing page, ask you a few simple questions, and then a member of the team from Stonebridge Wealth Management will reach back out to you and be able to connect with you to get your own complimentary retirement readiness review. We have a lot more to cover on today's episode about helping you successfully navigate to and through retirement. Stay with us.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter. The one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Welcome back to the Retirement Compass. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and I'm joined by Tim Kulhanek and Jeremy Gove of Stonebridge Wealth Management. We are talking today all about income. At the end of the day, it is all about making sure that you can generate a solid income plan for yourself in retirement. And I want to go back. We were talking in the first segment about the shift that has occurred, that so many more folks these days do not have a pension. But I'm curious, I know you work with a lot of folks who work with local Nebraska companies. What are you seeing? Are the trends on point? Are they the same with a lot of the local companies regarding pensions?
Yeah, a lot of the pensions have been frozen. So like in Lincoln, you think of Bryan Health, big employer, that pension's no longer active. They're no longer contributing or increasing their benefits. And there's other folks like Kawasaki has a pension, Nestle Purina, but a lot of those fall in that category of the used to be 59% that went away. They're still there for the original employees that paid into those, or that were benefiting from those, I should say, but it's no longer an active pension. So a new employee, a new hire will not have access to that.
Right, that's important to be aware of that for sure.
Yes, very much.
Well, we also talked about in the first segment a little bit about Social Security, and a lot of folks are concerned. They hear what's happening in the news. We know what our debt is. I mean, over 30 trillion and counting. It's gone up even since the show started today, right? Unfortunately. So with the latest Social Security Admin Trustees report, they're estimating that the Social Security Trust Fund will be completely depleted by 2034. That's not that far off. So what do we do about this?
Yeah, and again, we're going to hark back a lot in this program to having a plan, but I like to give a little bit of context. I enjoy the history aspect of it. I think I get that from my dad. He's a big history buff. He was in the Navy, and whether it's naval history or just American history. And so if we want to talk about what Social Security means to the average worker, I mean, Social Security covers over 66 million workers out there, or I should say retirees, beneficiaries as they call them. And one of the biggest shifts we've seen, so Social Security was written into law on August 14th, I want to say 1935 by FDR, okay? Now, at the time, there was over 150 workers for every one beneficiary. And so there's an awful lot of people working to support every one beneficiary. It really got off on the wrong foot, though. The first beneficiary, average life expectancy at the time was 60. She lived to 100.
Right.
And so
that threw a wrench in the plan, right?
Yeah, right off the bat.
Yeah.
And so that's why we get to where we're at with this report, finding, hey, we have a shortfall in 2033 for Social Security, and for the combined fund, Social Security and Disability, 2034. And so the question becomes, for our viewers is, and I'm not saying, this isn't specific advice, I'm not saying that Social Security is going to cut your benefits.
Right.
But when we stress test plans, you better believe that we're going to take that into consideration. What if there was a decline, a shortfall, a cut of 20%, would I still be okay? Because again, there's just not near enough people. There's like 2.7 workers for every beneficiary, and the United States is below replacement rate right now as far as new workers being added to the workforce. And so we have to have a plan.
Absolutely. I love that you said stress test a plan. Jeremy, I'd love for you to share a little bit more about that, and then talking about how you're helping prepare folks for, no matter what happens with Social Security, how you're helping them stay the course with their plans.
Yeah, so every time we put a plan together, when we're looking at income or taxes or whatever piece of it is, we always stress test it. And by that we mean there's a ton of different scenarios that could happen, right? We've seen some of them. What if there was another financial crisis that happened like 2008? What if, like Tim mentioned, Social Security was cut by 20%? What if your investment portfolio just stayed flat for the next 20 years? What if it never grew? And so that's the testing that we're doing when we're looking at these retirement plans.
So important to navigate through all that, all the what ifs, if you will, right?
Absolutely.
Well, what are your when people come to you and they're stressed out about Social Security in particular, what is your advice typically about what people need to be doing to prepare?
Well, a lot of times, I mean, everybody, there's so many stressors in our life today, right? And so one of the things we always tell people, let's just take a deep breath. There is a solution to the problem, and let's figure out what that solution is. And so a lot of times when people are talking about Social Security, people throw out, on YouTube or whatever, they throw out these worst case scenarios. They're going to, Social Security is coming to an end. The Republicans want to get rid of Social Security, whatever it is. And the fact of the matter is, the government's not going to get rid of Social Security.
I always say no administration wants to be the one that is known as the one that did away with Social Security.
They
right?
may be the last administration if that were the case. I mean, there would be, we would get the pitchforks out and we'd be, heading to Washington. But there are things that could happen and that are realistic. I mean, as Tim mentioned, there's only 2 point whatever workers per beneficiary. And so there are going to have to be changes. For people that are my generation, maybe they're extending the retirement age from 67 to, it may end up being 70 or something like that. Or they could start means testing benefits. By that I mean, if you have an income of whatever amount of dollars it is, they might reduce your benefits. There's just a lot of different things that they could do. The other thing that we talk about a lot or hear about a lot is raising the cap on taxed earnings for Social Security. So they could increase that tax or that threshold, above where it is now. And so our solution at Stonebridge is to use our software and our technology to do that means testing, to do that stress testing, to determine, is your plan viable? If this happens, what do we do then? And that's one of the benefits of having a plan. You never want to make a decision in a stressful time, right?
Right.
You always want to be able to take a breath and take a step back, because when you're dealing with the situation right at that moment, it seems way worse than it really is. And so that's what we're doing for our clients. We're providing that stress testing now, so that if something did happen, we're fine. We've got a plan for it.
Well, I know in last week's episode, Tim, you shared a great story about planning for a vacation and how you all didn't know how this was going to go until the travel agent really was able to give you a plan and say, this is what you need to know, this is what you need to do. And similarly, a financial plan is very similar to that.
For sure. And I think the analogy here would be you have to have the right travel agent.
Right.
You have the right financial advisor and holistic planner. So the question is, have you guys ever seen the movie Everest?
Yes. Oh, gosh.
It's scary, right?
Very scary.
Gives you nightmares, right?
Especially because it's based on a true story.
Based on a true story.
No, why are you unclipping? Don't do that, right?
So sadly, there's a lot of people who are, and look, I'm all for exploration. I think it's great, but there's a lot of people who go and try to climb Mount Everest, and a lot that don't make it down.
Yeah.
But I found an interesting statistic that I found out the vast majority of people who don't make it down, it's not because they had trouble on the way up.
Right.
They couldn't figure out how to get down.
Yes.
And I think about retirement a lot the same way. To folks out there that are our viewers, you've worked 30, 40 years in the accumulation phase where, beginning, starting off, you could almost just throw a dart. You're buying different funds or stocks or, whatever financial instruments you were using to try to amass wealth. And you thought, I've got a long time horizon so I can afford to take more risk. But then you get to retirement, it's a totally different ballgame, because if you fall, you don't like the results, right? You can't afford a mistake on the way down. We're your travel guide. We've landed the plane several times. We've helped people down that mountain in the distribution phase. It's what we focus on. We're specialists in that area, subject matter experts, if you will. And so if you're nearing or in that distribution phase, that'd be a reason you want to give us a call today. Number's right down there at the bottom of the screen, and find out, am I in a good position? Get a retirement readiness review. There's no cost, no obligation for this, but you can find out if you're in the right position. If you don't have a plan, we'll create one for you, a complimentary written income plan. If you don't, we'll stress test it and make sure that it stands the test.
Tim, Jeremy, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, again, that number to call is on the bottom of your screen, 866-256-7778. We know that a lot of this might be new to you, but it's not new to Tim and Jeremy and the team at Stonebridge Wealth Management. They would love to be your guide and help you navigate these complexities that the modern retiree is facing today. More on the Retirement Compass right after this.
Good morning, Ben.
Good morning, Ben. Hey, birthday party for Carol and 5. Happy birthday to you.
Good morning, Ben. Happy Monday.
Daryl's birthday, be there every square. Happy birthday to you. You can see from our quarterly report on slide number 62, we're trending in the right direction. All signs point to a very positive outlook for the next several years. If you peel back the onion
Ben, do you have anything to add?
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Welcome back, Nebraska. You're watching the Retirement Compass, which is dedicated to helping you successfully navigate to and through retirement. And Tim, Jeremy, we've been talking a lot today about income. We actually started off the show presencing the fact that a lot of folks no longer have pensions. And so in this post-pension world, how can retirees really maximize the resources that are available to them?
In my opinion, the best way you can do that is start by maximizing the benefits you are entitled to through a government program that we have been talking about a lot today, which is the Social Security program. And so too many people take it at face value. They say, oh, I'm 62, I'll just take it while I can get it. Well, my own father, so my mom is a retired school teacher. She taught 5th grade. Yes, I had her as a teacher. And no, she did not show any favoritism, quite the opposite. And my dad sold cars for the last 20 or so years of his career. And, there at the end of his career, he was ready to, he was tired. It got more high pressure, and it just wasn't the way he used to do things, where he'd sit down with a farmer, and he used to get awards for selling trucks because he worked with a lot of farmers and they were recurring customers, right?
Right.
So he was so excited to, get his foot into retirement that he actually filed for Social Security before he retired, before he had reached full retirement age, and he was penalized for it. So he got less money than he otherwise would have because there's only a limit on how much you can make. So understanding the rules is critical, and so many people don't. So having a good foundation, making sure that you're maximizing your Social Security. Jeremy and I and our lead advisors on our team, we know the rules. We've spent hours upon hours of training and educating ourselves to make sure that our clients are making good decisions just right off the bat.
Absolutely. Social Security can be so complex. I mean, there's so many different rules. As you mentioned, the rules change. There's so many mathematical calculations. And I know as I've traveled the country and spoken with folks, and the number one question about Social Security is, when should I file? When should I claim? And to that, the real answer is, it depends, right? So talk to us about that, Jeremy.
Yeah, so it really does. There's not a, 1 + 1 is 2 with this type of calculation. I had to reference this because I couldn't remember exactly how many rules there were, but in the Social Security handbook, there's actually 2,728 different rules on drawing Social Security. And on top of that, there's the program operating manual, which has 100,000 rules to help you explain the 2,728 rules that are already, there.
My gosh, if that much clarification is needed, holy moly,
right?
I
mean, it's crazy. It's kind of like dealing with the IRS code, I mean, and so for most people, it's probably going to be at age 66 or 67 when their full retirement age occurs. But I'm reminded of a story that one of my clients, I had just started meeting with him. And I think at the time he was 64 or 65. And anyway, they had a tremendous income. They farmed, they had a bunch of trucks providing this income. And when I was just going through things, I didn't even ask him about Social Security in our first meeting because I didn't think there was any way that they would be drawing Social Security. When I was going through in our second meeting and I was walking through their income, he said, well, we're actually drawing Social Security. And I looked at him like, what? You're already drawing Social Security? Well, it turned out that his CPA, who had been doing their taxes for many years, told him that you don't know when Social Security is going to run out of money, so you should go ahead and start drawing at 62.
Wow.
The challenge with that is they weren't getting any of their Social Security benefits. They're getting penalized. Not only
they weren't getting maximized or optimized, and talk about that penalty.
That's what I was going to say. The penalty is, so they're getting 30% less just because they drew early. Because their income is so high, they're losing $1 for every $2 of income that they had. And so it made absolutely no sense. If for their situation, it would have made sense to wait till they're 70.
Right.
And so, it comes down to, you have to work with people that actually know what they're talking about. And We have a lot of people in our lives that provide advice. You always have that neighbor that says, hey, I got this new stock or whatever it is.
Right, down at the water cooler, right, so to speak, yep.
Yeah, well, my mom started doing this at this age, and we just need to work with people that know what they're talking about, that can dig into your specific situation and then help put a plan together for that.
So Tim, when do you find is the optimal time to begin having this type of Social Security planning conversation with people? And how do you go about building that plan and helping them answer the question of when it's the best time for them to file?
Yeah, I like to say that there's no penalty for being over-prepared when it comes to retirement or anything else. So I like to have it well ahead of time. So a lot of the folks that come to us, they're either pre-retirees or retirees. Now we work with younger folks. Typically it's a referral from an existing client. And for them, it's a different conversation. But for the majority of folks that we're meeting with on a regular basis, it's a conversation we're having when they're in their 50s most often, saying, hey, here's the different options. Here's what we know today. Let's base it off of today's laws. Yeah, we know they're going to change, but life's dynamic. So planning has to be dynamic too. Again, as I said earlier in the program, it really comes down to having a plan. And the way we design plans is it's easy to go in and tweak something. Most people are better off than they realize, though. That's one thing I'd like to stress is most people are a lot better off. They might think, oh, there's no way I can afford to retire. They come in and we show them what is possible, and they realize that, you know what? If I use the right Social Security strategy, I use the right distribution strategy, and I make smart decisions with the wealth that I've been able to create here or to amass, I'm going to be just fine.
And that's so encouraging, because I bet some folks, some people want to continue working, but a lot of folks are just done and they want to retire, but they don't feel like they can. Do you have any examples of someone who's come in who's been able to realize, oh gosh, I can actually go ahead and retire sooner?
Yeah, I actually had a gal. She's a CPA, actually, and she works for a large company that everybody would know the name of. But anyway, so she came in and she brought in all of her stuff. It was obviously very organized, very detailed. She thought she needed to work for several more years. When I started looking at how much income they actually had and how much income they're going to generate from their investments, they could retire that day. And she was getting to the point where she had loved her job, but now was starting to get to the that point of I don't like going to work anymore. So just for her to know I can pull the plug, I can unplug, I can go do what I want to do, that's priceless.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you so much for being here. We encourage you at home, take advantage of this retirement readiness review by calling that number on your screen. We appreciate you watching. We love you, Nebraska, and we'll see you next week.